Hello and welcome to RoadMap 2015. I'm Binga Ashiru. We begin today with a brief bath of uncomplimentary exchange of remarks between the former President Olusegun Obasanjo and the federal government due to the National Assembly. The former president, while commenting on the state of the nation at the public presentation of Justice Mustafa Akombi, accused the federal government of gross corruption, while he also didn't spare the National Assembly, as the former president criticized them for failing in their oversight responsibilities. Former President Obasanjo also faulted the federal government approach in tackling the wave of insurgency in the Northeast. He says the nature of the violence in the Northeast is not just a religious war, but it's as a result of the harsh economic realities of the area. Let's have the report of how and where this happened.
Former President Olusegun Obasanjo was among other high-profile guests, including former Chief Justices of the Federation, Sultan of Sokoto, Oba of Lagos, and a host of others, at the presentation of an autobiography of Justice Mustafa Akombi. But typical of the elder statesman, he dwelt on the state of the nation. He criticized the government and the National Assembly as corrupt.
The old saying goes that fish starts to rot from the head. If the head is rotten, there's nothing left of the body. The legislature, which shrouded its corruption in the opaque nature of its budget, have been encouraged through direct payment of money to the legislature to cover up wrongs done by the executive, thereby making the legislature fail in its oversight responsibility. They indulge in extorting money from departments, contractors, and ministries in two ways on the so-called oversight responsibility.
The former president did not stop there. He also spoke at length on the president's handling of the economy and youth unemployment. He also advised the federal government to tackle the Boko Haram crisis using less force but concentrate on education in the Northeast.
Let me make bold to say that if we continue to apply force alone, since Boko Haram has become an industry within the government circle and within the Boko Haram itself, it may be suppressed for a while, but it will not be eliminated.
The growing insecurity, impunity, and inequality have fueled youth restiveness in their state of joblessness, even in the midst of apparent plenty.
The economy is in the doldrums, if not in reverse. The often quoted GDP growth neither reflects on the living condition of most of our people, nor on most of the indigenous industry.
While the presidency seemed to be keeping quiet in this mudslinging from former President Obasanjo, though it was gathered that from a reliable source that the presidency is resisting every overtures by those in sympathy of the federal government to throw back some stinkers at the former president. We understand that President Goodluck Jonathan told his supporters that he owed the former president a deep gratitude for his role in his emergence as the president of Nigeria. But the National Assembly is not taking these weighty allegations lying low, as they describe former President Obasanjo's allegations as unfortunate and an attempt to denigrate the lawmaking body. One of the issues raised by the former president was the wave of insurgency in the northeast of the country. At the moment, there are ongoing heated debate on the federal government's proposed extension of emergency rule in the northeastern states of Adamawa, Yobe, and Borno. We had a chat with the national vice chairman of the APC for Northeast, Engineer Babachir Lawal. He accuses the federal government of deliberately conniving with the insurgents in order to disenfranchise the northeast of Nigeria come 2015 elections. Engineer Lawal also comments on the recent National Assembly fracas. It says the lawmakers who scaled the National Assembly complex should be given the highest national award for putting their lives on the line to rescue democracy. But were they actually fighting for democracy, or they were fighting for their ambitions? Well, let's take a listen to Engineer Lawal.
Immediately the state of emergency was introduced, it came into force, we noticed that the Boko Haram started growing. I mean, they started moving unchecked, unchallenged. It appeared that the only thing that has changed was the curtailing of our fundamental human rights in the Northeast and the ability to defend ourselves against the rampaging Boko Haram. That was what we saw that had changed. Consequence of this was the military itself was overrun by Boko Haram. And so we didn't, after the 6 months, we wanted it abolished. The government did not. But the feeling in our region is that the emerging state of emergency, if it had any use at all, was to the benefit of Boko Haram.
If you're saying the imposition of state of emergency in the Northeast is for the benefit of Boko Haram, so in what sense are you saying this?
The advantage was this. We started noticing the truth of that the military, there was a build-up of military, there was a build-up of military hardware, but as soon as they get engaged in Boko Haram, the military evaporates and they leave behind their equipment and weapons to Boko Haram.
Engineer Lawal, I'll need you to explain more on the issue of you saying the military surrendered their hardware, their military hardware to the insurgents. Are you saying the military suffered losses and these insurgents captured all their military hardware, which is expected in a war situation? Could you set the record straight?
Look, outside the Northeast, you can use any vocabulary you want to describe what the phenomenon that's happening. You are calling it losses, but the way we see it, it's as if the government had a deliberate policy to arm Boko Haram through the manner in which they were readily abandoning their weapons in retreat. So you can call it losses, but we in the Northeast, the general population in the Northeast considered it as a deliberate method of retreating Boko Haram, even where they had losses.
Now, there seems to be a bit of inconsistency now in your line of thought, and I would like to get you straight. You said that the insurgents, the military, handed over their weapons, and I'm wondering if there ain't any better ways of handling these weapons to the insurgents other than at the war front.
It's not as if we do not think that the federal government has other ways of arming Boko Haram. I'm sure as a journalist you would have heard all sorts of stories about our people saying that helicopters were dropping arms in the bush, our people cited helicopters, all over the place, and nobody did anything about it. You journalists just brush it aside. Look, I'm from Adamawa State, I'm from Hong local government. Let me tell you, before Boko Haram overran northern Adamawa State, the federal government, the chief of defense staff, who incidentally is from northern Adamawa, his local government and mine have common boundaries. There was a ceasefire. Now, before the ceasefire, our people had run into the bushes, had run into so-called safer towns. In my own village in particular, my own house at that time was housing about 250 people from, we don't know where, from running away from Boko Haram. Now he announces a ceasefire, and pronto, a week or two later, our people felt that they were safe. The military started arming and mobilizing towards the boundary of our local government, specifically when Baza was overtaken. They started massing equipment and men in Uba within my local government, just 30, 40 kilometers away from Baza. So we felt, our people felt that, things are going to improve. The military has come, they are amassing, and they went back to their villages, feeling that now Boko Haram will not advance. But just as soon as they got back to their communities, 3 or 4 days later, according to local sources, Boko Haram men came on about 20 motorcycles and about 40 hillocks and overran the military build-up of about 200 people. They led the military, joined the civilians in running, escaping from people on 20 motorcycles, which can carry a maximum of 3, and Hilux vehicles, which we estimate, no matter how fighting force, carry maybe maximum of 10, and they overran the place, and they inherited the military build-up.
Now, how do we verify this assertion now? If you're saying you saw a helicopter or your local people saw a helicopter dropping military hardware for the insurgents in the bushes. Now, how do we verify if that was actually a federal government military jet or a jet belonging to the insurgents?
You know better that nobody can own helicopters and fly them in Nigeria without the knowledge of the federal authorities. You know that very well. So if our people say they frequently see helicopters dropping arms, we expect the government. So
now you're assuming that it's the federal government, that it has to be the federal government?
It doesn't necessarily have to be the federal government, but it necessarily either has to be with the approval of the federal government or through the negligence of the federal government.
Now let's look at the recent development that happened last week at the National Assembly, where we saw some members of the House of Representatives scaling the fence. Could you give us an insight, a perspective of your party to this development?
Sometimes I get discouraged by the logic of government. The IG said he saw a motley crowd. But the IG had long before he saw a motley crowd reinforced the security at the gate, sent his police commissioners and
they said they acted based on intelligence reports.
Okay, but we are saying he saw.
So they were being
Okay, so it was not as if he saw a motley crowd.
No, well, we also.
It was a pre-planned. Now, for you to describe the members of the House of Representatives as a motley crowd, it's actually uncharitable. Now, our own understanding, our own facts of the matter in APC is this. PDP had pre-planned to impeach the speaker, like with a few of their members, like they normally would do, like they tried. I think in so many places they just did one in Ekiti where 7 impeached, where they did it in 11 governors forum. You know, it's their culture, where the minority can impeach the majority. So we too had our own intelligence that PDP was going to impeach the speaker. A lot of the legislators, don't forget, both PDP and APC, who had this, and knew now when they got to the gates, they discovered that yes, the rumors was in any case true, because now they were denied entry into the chambers of the National Assembly to save Nigeria's democracy, to save the crisis that will engulf Nigeria if the PDP goes to carry out this illegality, this indecent, they perpetrate this indecent culture that they have imbibed on the National Assembly, at the national level. It will be calamity, it will be the death of our democracy. These heroes, take note, it was not only APC legislators, these heroes of democracy decided that for as long as it was a legal process, scale the fence into their own property. I had a lawyer say somewhere, when you climb the fence into your own property, it's not illegal. These are heroes that we naturally should give them even national award for saving our democracy.